Welcome to the Home Care Strategy Lab. I'm your host, Miriam Allred. Today in the lab, I'm joined by Matt Ericksen, the VP of Sales and Operations at Griswold Corporate. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, Miriam. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
I have been looking forward to this for a while. You and I have been friends for a long time. You and I have been in home care for a long time, and I've interviewed you several times. And it's time to have you back in the lab on the new show to dive into AI. I am just so impressed with your passion and excitement for home care, but also your passion and fire and what sound like sleepless nights thinking about AI and its implications and its use cases in home care. And so I want this to be pretty casual conversational. I want to pick your brain on what you're doing, what you're thinking about, what are you implementing with your franchisees. I want to just kind of take you in a few different directions and think through and talk about this in a more just casual conversational way. So before we get into it, for those that don't know you, why don't you share a little bit about your background in home care and then bring us up to speed on your current role and responsibilities at Griswold?
Sure. I've been in home care and home health care now for coming on 13 years, and I've held every role from scheduling coordinator, recruiter, outside sales to location director, everything but clinical, pretty much. And so it's been an amazing journey that have allowed me to see all the different aspects of the business and what goes into those roles and to be successful. And a lot of potholes along the way too. But that's led to the wonderful place that I'm at right now with Griswold Corporate, the franchisor based here in Bluebell. I've been here coming up on 5 years now. And in my role, taking all the life experiences I've had on the operator side, working with the on the franchisees and the corporate structures, pediatric home health, adult geriatrics, behavioral health, is bundling all those together to best serve our franchise owners, their teams across the country, and most importantly, their caregivers and the clients that they serve in their communities.
I love it. And I might cite this at the start and several times in the conversation. You got a degree in history. And I just think it's funny and interesting how we all came to home care, but history degree turned home care, turned VP, we're going to talk about it and you're going to show some of your AI tools. Now you're coding AI like the rest of the world, but it's just amazing how we all evolve and where we land and what we're capable of now in this modern AI world.
It's absolutely, it's like I couldn't write a crazier script than what where my life's gone with this. I have an amazing amount of random facts on the Civil War. If anybody ever wants to know those, that's that's the specialty of my degree. But ironically, what I found in my as I got immersed into generative AI and LLMs is it's not the typical IT specialties that these companies are hiring for. They're actually hiring individuals with degrees in English, history, political science, more of that aspect for the ability to spot trends and analyze and prompt engineer. And I thought that this was kind of cool. Is who knew that a history degree could actually be useful in the skills that are now applicable to the world that we live in?
Yes. And before this conversation, I think you were listening to a podcast this morning talking about scaling up. In our career, in our life, it's all about scaling up. But with AI, it's totally rewriting that script on how we think about accelerating our career. Share a little bit more about your thoughts on what you
It
heard.
was one of those light bulb moments that you have that you wish you're always chasing. And when you have one, you're just like, oh, that's so profound. And I was listening to there's a practical AI podcast. The name escapes me of the exact title of it, but they were emphasizing that historically we've in the workspace and workforce development, we've always upskilled in vertical channels, taking a coordinator to maybe being a senior coordinator or a director of an office, right? And just up and just kind of keep it on a specific track. Well, it's not about upskilling anymore. You don't have to make a better, say, coder, or you have to make a better scheduler in a way, as much as you have to help them access and learn how to just take advantage of the tools, taking advantage of prompt engineering. There's a big difference between just, searching Google and structuring the correct prompt, and, the teaching somebody how to do that. You can create quite the multiple on their skill set very, very quickly. And I think there's just a material shift from just historically taking years to learn a trade. It's not the case anymore.
It's so interesting. The multiplying. I completely agree. It's how do we take a role or a function and multiply it with AI. I think that's the realization that a lot of people, companies are having is how do we like double down and multiply with AI? And that's where things get really interesting. And that'll be a tone through the conversation today. I want to take you back, I don't know, a couple of years. Like you've been tinkering with AI for years now. I want to hear your first aha moment that you were tinkering, you built something or did something or thought something and it like unlocked this passion or this fire in you of like, wow, this is really gonna like change the game for home care. What was that moment for you a couple of years ago?
Yeah, it was definitely it was somewhere, and it's all blurry now because days just fly by. But it was somewhere between, like, I would say mid to late summer of 2022, and GPT is coming out, and we're all using kind of like as a glorified Google search, or like, at that point it was a lot of, hey, can you help me write an email, right? And that was about kind of where everybody's kind of public use general knowledge base was, and certainly, it helped me there a lot. I struggle with putting eloquent emails together at times, so that it certainly brought value, and that kind of, I'm like, okay, it can do this for me, what else can it do? I've been heavily involved with the caregiver and staff recruitment retention strategies here during my tenure, and going back to our Indeed page, everybody's got a company page, everybody's got reviews. I'm like, well, what can I do with that? That's a giant data set that I know I can upload this file to GPT. What can we do here? And that's part of the fun of it is just kind of like innocent exploration. I didn't have any intention of kind of figuring things out. I'm just like, hey, what does this button do? Quite literally. And I downloaded all of our caregiver reviews. I upload the file to Chat GPT. At that point, it had the innovation to where it could do analytical capabilities, right? And it could look at numbers and analyze them and quantify stuff. And it was able to work. I was able to prompt it to, not knowing what I was doing. I have no clue what I was doing, so I'm not going to act like I was just by accident, right? But that was the aha moment. Was I figured out, like, oh my God, I can organize by region, by state, by location, a sentiment analysis, a behavioral analysis, a strength and weakness analysis of our franchise network. And I can take this information that I created in 15 minutes, and now I can go and equip our owners with insights that would have taken days to historically put together in a manual process. Even if it was done in Excel, it would still have taken so long. And that was the aha. I'm like, the aha was not so much that, oh, this is cool that I can just go and do this like quick analysis. It's the thing that had me sit back in my seat was, I just did in 3 days what it would take 3 days. I just did it in 15 minutes. What else can I do in that compression of time? And then from there, that's where, my wife would come downstairs at 2 a.m. in the morning. Why are you still up? I'm like, because I'm just fiddling and I'm tinkering. And I'm like, but that was what set off what I do now.
And that was 3 years ago, and I think what you just shared might be mind-blowing to some people, like, wow, like, that's already, like, something that other people can go and replicate, but it just gets me excited about what you're gonna show here in a few minutes. It's, like, insane how far you've come, how far this technology has come in 3 years, and that was an aha for you a couple of years ago, and you've just, like, hit the fast forward button and dove into this, like, head first and are seeing like insane results with this today. So, one more question just to kind of like tee up this conversation. Well, actually, two. One is, um, it took home care a while to adapt from paper to software for obvious reasons. What's your take on our transition from software to everyday AI adoption and use? Like, what's your take on what that time span is going to look like?
I think it's going to compound is the best way I describe it to people, is that, for, the innovations that are occurring in present state and that we know are only a matter of time, it's only going to compound and just speed up. And when we look at, you take a step back from kind of the environment that we're in right now with everything, and the big jump from paper-based to then going to our digital, CRM-based kind of style that we're in right now, that's a material shift in the work environment and at that time, the upskilling. How do we change a skill set or improve a skill set from paper-based communication styles, right, where a lot of time between tasks, right, to the CRM absolutely sped things up. But now we don't have to make that jump from a different environment. We're in that same digital environment. We're just changing the tools that we're adopting into our daily life, and that's the key right there. Is that's where the compounding is going to occur. Is that same environment, but it's the fact that if you have the right talent and they learn these tools, then we're going to be moving. What would have taken 5 years, we'll do in a year, 2 years. Like um, I don't see a world without AI being commonplace. Um, if that's the best way to say it, for another year or so. Like it's just going to be so visible, top line, embedded everywhere. We'll probably forget that we're actually dealing with it at that point. It's just going to be so kind of like an unconscious interaction every day.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point is we already have the digital foundation. So we're not necessarily, establishing an entire new base, a new environment. I like that you're using that word, but it's just actually like layering in new opportunities, new tools, new ways of thinking, I think more than anything back to like prompting. We're not necessarily teaching people an entirely new skill set. It's actually just like leaning into like language and writing and prompting. I'm curious today, think of like your network of franchisees, what the AI penetration or adoption is. Like just share like your take on how many people are tinkering, how many people are using it and seeing results, how many people are not using it, how many people are like, you know, keeping at an arm's length from this. Like what are you seeing across your network?
Yeah, whatever I see on a daily basis, whenever we interact with it, it always impresses me because I think that's a beautiful thing about what the space we're in with this AI innovation, chapter is not one single person has all the best ideas or they have all the bright ideas, right? And so I get excited about talking with franchise owners because each one of them is finding different ways to find success in their own way with these tools, and it's so exciting and just it's a great time to be at Griswold for that reason. Is that the owners are just all finding ways to adopt it. And to answer your question, so I don't go down too far of a rabbit hole, is after that aha moment with the Indeed experience, and I was like, okay, this is a thing that's not going away, and we have a conference coming up. How do I get us positioned well with it with this to be commonplace in our community, in our brand? And so when I was on stage doing one of our presentations on AI and what it means, because everybody's asking, well, what is this thing? What is this thing in 2022, 2023? I asked at a show of hands, how many people have played with this thing? How many people have tried this back at the end of 2022, beginning of 2023? And way more hands I could have ever possibly thought would have ever raised went up. And then when they started sharing examples and the mic went around and people are talking about how they were using it back then, I'm like, people get it. It assimilates almost naturally. Just the pain points are so great with the business that we're in and what it can solve, that people just kind of were like, all saw the connections from whether you were a marketer or clinician or wherever you came in your life. Like everybody at Griswold saw that opportunity. And at this point, it's 80%, 85% of our network is interacting with it in one way, shape, or other. I've yet to meet somebody that's like, absolutely not. Yeah, everybody. I mean, from the person from an owner that opened up a year ago to, our tenured owners that have been with us for 35 plus years, they're all using it and they're all finding ways to help it make their care delivery better.
And the results might be slightly biased because they have a leader like yourself that's just like all in on this. And you are setting, I think, a good example of like, let's tinker, let's play, let's figure this out together. But it's interesting and I think good to hear that maybe 80 to 85% are using it in some way, shape, or form. My hope is, and I do think that might be slightly reflective of the industry. I think everyone I talk to, it's definitely on their radar. Everyone's thinking about it, talking about it. And I think the adoption, the usage, the tinkering has gone up significantly, especially in this past year. And so we probably are at, maybe that 80 to 85% as an industry. And so those listening to this, if you're in that 10 or 15% that's not in, like get in, get on, like you said earlier,
You
there's
can't
no
break it.
going.
So just why not, right?
Why not? Tell me the top like 5 or 6 tools that you personally and professionally are using. Like obviously everyone's using ChatGPT, OpenAI specifically, but there's maybe 5 or 6 tools that are in like your tool belt. Rattle off what those are and maybe just briefly about like what you use each of
Sure.
them for.
Yeah. So yeah, Griswold's a Microsoft environment. So we like to, and it's in our uh, our senior director of IT, Tim, has done a great job as far as bringing all those tools and resources into one easy integrated environment. And the Copilot from Microsoft really layers well over all that. And so for on a daily basis, my operations team and I, we use it in all our functionality. Whether it's in Excel, whether it's in PowerPoint, whether it's in Teams. It helps us record transcriptions and summaries. We've weaved it into every which way possible with just our daily interactions with each other, with our franchise owners. It's helped us just be overall more productive there. ChatGPT, obviously, it's the most common one that everybody talks about. I like it. Just I use it essentially. It replaces Google for me in a way, to be honest. In that it allows me to articulate a search prompt far more effectively and get faster results than I otherwise would have to do 4 or 5, let's say, manual searches that aren't with no intelligence behind it, right? So I like it for that. Claude from Anthropic is a great tool. Each one of these agents or each one of these LLMs have a specialty. Claude, we found, is really great at coding as well as helping to edit and to help you finesse emails, especially those most high volume, obviously. But it's really great as far as helping to add a tone to it. And I found that one we like a lot. Ring Central is our voice over IP service. Transcription services from their AI notes. If you have a voice over IP system, ask your provider, what's it cost? Can this be added on? Sometimes they have it on for free. Like it really is, kind of like if the voice over IP provider doesn't have it, I'd switch providers. Let's put it that way, because it's just such a game changer there. And one of the creative ones I really like that I actually used for that first initial presentation on stage at conference it's called Dectopus, and it helps you essentially you can prompt engineer yourself a PowerPoint. You don't have to manually create it. And so from a creative side, it's super great to to take information. Maybe you pull it from, do an analysis on ChatGPT, just dump that information into Dectopus, and it's going to help you just kind of build a presentation in a fraction of the time that it does manually.
Amazing. And so prompting is like the underlying theme here. I want to actually have you explain and talk a little bit about prompting, or even share like the anatomy of prompting, because all of these tools function very similarly, if not the same. You are basically prompting it. It gives you outputs. You prompt it again to refine those outputs. And so we're all at this stage of like getting better at prompting and thinking about prompting and having AI help us better prompt. So will you share that like anatomy of prompting and why that's so key to having success with any and all of these tools?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to share my screen. So what I'm sharing here is it's just a screen grab that I did when one of those nights I couldn't sleep, and I stumbled upon I think it was an Instagram post from OpenAI. But with the latest GPT-5 release, they also sent out what's the ideal way to structure a prompt, and I've been using this ever since, and I can validate it. It works. And to walk everybody through it is, prompt engineering is it's not complicated. It just needs to be well thought out. All right. It's, Google, everybody's like, say, hey, just, go Google it. Right. And just sure. And you can ask it. We've gone lazy with our requests. It's just like, we've almost been able to, we talk SEO. So we literally do our searches based off of what we know to be the keywords that are necessary to trigger a result in SEO. we're just reconditioning ourselves now, and it requires us to not be lazy in a way where to get a really great result with these generative AI platforms. The prompt you see in front of us, it has a body to it, so it has a role, right? Have it, and, I like to always start my prompts off with, you are an expert in home care, you are an expert in sentiment analysis, you are a psychologist. Who do you know to be a subject matter expert in that area? And just quite simply say, impersonate them, right? Then define them. You have to define the task, be very clear, articulate it well, couple dashes, bullet points that will highlight it. Give it context. What are you trying to do here with this information? You've defined what its role is. You've defined what its task is, what you'd like it to do, but how does that fit into the bigger scheme? Help the system understand that, and then it can use its logic to make small tweaks. And this is where the refinement really pays off. Reasoning, ask it, this is where tone comes in. How do you cross-check, validate information? How does that logic go to work on providing you that output as it gets refined through this process? And how do you want to be presented it? How do you want that information once they're finished looking through it, once the system's looking through it? Do you want it in a grid pattern? Do you want it in a paper base? Do you want it in a Word document? These are all, there's no limits here. So you just got to define how you want to be able to have this information in a viable format. And then the last, and this is really important, often overlooked, is stop conditions, is what they call, is tell it when you want it to stop thinking, because it can over-engineer something for you. It can over-engineer a result when it may be a great idea, but it may be too many great ideas into one thing. That's personally happened to me, is I've created great products and tools and assets, but there's too much in one thing. You have to break it down. And so tell it, stop, after this point, stop after you've successfully created one, insight. You want to define guardrails, essentially. This is the anatomy of a GPT-5 prompt, and this can work across other generative AI platforms. It takes a few minutes, but it will give you results that would have taken you hours to achieve.
This is a gold mine. I'm like embarrassed that I wasn't aware of this before you shared this with me, but it's so simple, it's perfect. I was gonna have just like dial through what those were, but it's really like kind of like a six step prompt to prompt chat GPT or to prompt in general. The two things that stand out to me is the reasoning. Like when I look at that, I think a lot of people are like have piecemealed this together themselves. Role, task, context, reasoning, output, stop conditions. The two that stand out to me is reasoning and the stop conditions. Like I think a lot of people are now starting with the role, like here's who I am or here's who I'm trying to be. Here's what I want you to do, the task. Here's the context of my industry, of my scenario, of my role. The reasoning one is interesting though. It's another layer of detail that it needs to articulate and emphasize exactly what you're looking for. The output, I think, is natural. Here's what we want it to generate. But then also those stop conditions, because we've all experienced that for better and for worse, where the AI just starts running on its own, like it has a mind of its own, and it'll take you to the ends of the earth. But that's neat that you can prompt it and give it those like stop conditions, or kind of tell it how to like stay reined in rather than letting it run long, even though there's some value to that because it has, again, a mind of its own and can take you into like new depths or new thought processes, but you can also like reel it in as need
And
be. So
that's
I'm really glad
really
you shared this.
important in all of this, is that this is a prompt where, this is, again, practice makes perfect. This is not something I'm still learning every day. In the big scheme of things, I know nothing, right? But this is just what's been really effective for me. But before this, it's two steps. It's, what do you want, and what do you not want the prompt? What do you want the AI to do? And so just define, hey, I want this, and I don't want this. I want a nicely worded email that's authentic, human sounding in tone. I don't want a robot email. I don't want an overly professional email. And you'll just start, after playing with it, you'll understand, all right, what I put in, this is what I get out. Do that enough times, you get a sample size of how you interact with the system. And this is a great way to then articulate for much bigger projects, for much bigger requests, a great way to kind of segment your ask so that you get a really good result that actually meets what you originally intended to get.
Yeah, and in my mind, this is like a shortcut. I feel like for people like you and me that have been tinkering for years, it's like we've had to just kind of like figure this out. Like everybody that's tinkering, we've kind of like again figured out the best way in our own minds. But now it's like we're several years in. OpenAI is like, here's how to do it. So anyone that's getting into the game now, it's like this is literally how you do it, and you will see success instantaneously because this is how it thrives. Um, you also shared with me what you're kind of defining as like this overall productivity index because people do have hesitations with AI. It's in I think a lot of people's minds, it's all about like ROI. And so for you, even personally in your role, you've had to think about there's all these opportunities, there's all these workflows, there's all these tools. How do I personally prioritize where to focus my time and attention? And then once you find something, how to decide whether or not to like lean in and invest in it for it to turn into something? Because I think there's just a lot of like AI noise, and now it's getting hard for people to decipher where to spend their time and energy, which tools to invest in, where to let AI run, where to scale back and let, the humans stay at the forefront. Like you've been thinking a lot about this. Like where do we lean in and where do we stay put? So you defined this like index. Can you explain what that is and why that's important for people to basically analyze like their AI productivity?
Yeah, I think that it started from with, and this is kind of how I'm wired, ADHD mind, dyslexic mind. Like I just, shiny objects could get me, right? And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a sucker for them every time. And one of the things I have to kind of you build in is, you have to, as you train yourself to kind of work with that, how you're wired there is, what's the end result of this? Sure, it's interesting, it's curious, but does it actually align with your company's strategic objectives, or does it solve for a problem? And that's really where that was the premise by which, all right, when I got into AI, I'm like, sure, this is all super neat. I could lose lots of hours of sleep on this thing just playing with it. But where does that jump happen between just playing with something that's neat? It's a trinket. It's maybe it solves a very minute task for you, but what do you make the jump to actually scaling, deploying beyond just your internal role to everybody else, right? And so as I've progressed in understanding the AI tools that are at our hands and what we can actually build with them is this overall productivity index, or OPI as I call it. I put everything through this, and I'd like to really look at you know the overall labor cost and what the cost of the AI tool that potentially could be deployed is. And okay, if it costs me say X dollars to acquire or build this AI asset, okay, how much labor, time, and hours, and how much I'm paying in payroll can I move from that task that the AI solved for to a higher value, higher productivity, higher ROI gain that my staff, my team otherwise couldn't access because they were limited by the manual repetition of the task that AI solved for. And I look at it as like, okay, so all right, what's my average? Just take your average labor. If you have somebody like say salaried, divide their salary for the year by 2080, get their hourly rate, right? Ask them how much time on average are you spending this week on this repetitive task, right? Multiply the time investment by their labor costs, break down the cost of the AI agent or the asset, figure out what that is, on a weekly cadence as well too. And then, all right, and it's almost always a win. Almost always a win, whether you have to build it yourself or you have to acquire it from a software provider. But then I'd much rather spend that, say, 3 hours of scheduling, labor, instead of having to do manual note taking. I'd rather than talk to clients. I'd rather than talk to caregivers because I know client satisfaction, caregiver satisfaction, it solves everything. If they're happy there, they're happy, the business takes care of itself. So why not try to move my team and my staff to those high functioning activities that generate a way better ROI than being locked behind a computer taking notes? Paying them the same.
Can you? Yeah, super well said. And I think this is so valuable for leaders to hear this because, again, a lot of people are in that tinkering, playing. This is a nice to have. This is helping one person do one thing and it's cool and like let them explore and tinker. But you said it so well. At what point does it get baked into our processes and it becomes a new standard and everyone is going through this same standard or this same operation using the same tool and function. So I think that's a really important distinction. Can you share a specific example? I think even with your usage of Copilot, like that has been like an adoption process. And so figuring out like the math on and the ROI of using that tool and streamlining it, can you just like share some numbers to illustrate this formula?
Sure. Yeah. So the single biggest I would say case study on this OPI for us was we talked to a lot of franchise owners, their teams, any given basis. I have a team of four alongside me here in the operations department, and we take a lot of notes. We do a lot of franchise calls, franchise support calls, and it's a lot of content that we go through on any given day. It's also a lot of notes that we have to put into, say, Fran Connect, which is our operating system. So just like our franchise owners use WellSky, we use Fran Connect to help us stay on top of our notes and our jobs and do the best we possibly can. And I asked everybody, hey, help me understand how many hours you spend. I know it's hours, it's not minutes, it's hours. How many hours do you spend per week? Not talking to anybody, just putting notes into Fran Connect. And I found out it was coming out to about, and I have the notes down in front of me here, about 3.5 hours a week per staff member. Out of and we all work over 40 hours, but let's just say it's 40 hours. That's a significant chunk if you look at it of 3.5 hours that I could be talking with somebody else. I could be talking with more franchise owners. I could be working with my team, collaborating at a higher level. So how can I solve for that? Well, we know that, Copilot has a transcription to talk about the voice over IP, and Copilot presents that, it's an add-on service we can add into our Microsoft environment. And we did. I tested it out first myself and I figured out, okay, well, yeah, about 3.5 hours for me too. And it takes me about 10 or 15 minutes to document one call manually. It takes me 10 seconds now to copy and paste a transcript that has way better notes than I'll ever take from into an email, send that email to the franchise owner so they know what our takeaways, our next action items are for the next call. And oh, by the way, and then put it right back into Fran Connect and do that in a millisecond compared to what we were doing before. That compounding, right? So across all five of us, 3.5 hours each, right? With our average labor cost around $47 per hour, we were looking at, $822 per week that was being spent, or 17.5 hours being spent on just notes. And we're all subject matter experts. Why would we have the operations team spend 17.5 hours altogether on manual note documentation? We need to do it. It has to happen. We can't skip it. But by putting it through this overall productivity index, we were able to figure out that, all right, it costs pennies, quite literally pennies, $2.75, right, per person per week to have the Copilot transcriptions. That's a big immediate ROI. And that OPI is the best way to figure out, okay, can we make this thing work for 3 weeks? If it works, great. We'll keep it. If it doesn't work in 3 weeks, if we can't find a way for us to implement it, adopt it, absorb it into our environment, it's not worth trying to put a square peg through a round hole. We can revisit it, but we need to move on because we can't go down the rabbit hole and then reduce our performance, because our goal is support our owners the best we possibly can.
I like too that you even just referenced that like 3-week time frame, because it can become a distraction. It can become noise. It can become additional work if you're focused too much on these things. But it's like focus on it, concentrate for 3 weeks, go all in on it, track all of this, and then you either keep it or you kill it. It's like we're not wasting time or energy. It's like it's either it's in or it's out based off this overall productivity index. Will you just say kind of like the one-line formula of the OPI index so people listening to it can like understand exactly what the formula is? Because I think it's
Yep,
really
I'll try to
powerful.
articulate the best I possibly can right here. So what you want to do is take, essentially OPI is simply hours reclaimed times the average hourly cost versus the weekly, let's say in this case, weekly AI tool cost, right? So you need to know your hours spent on that task. You need to know what your labor cost is for that period, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, whatever, maybe define the period of time. It's hours reclaimed times average hourly cost compared to weekly AI tool cost. And
Yeah.
that's your OPI.
Perfect. Perfect. I'm just thinking of people listening to this. It's like, okay, what
And I can
exactly
be
is
all
that?
over
So
the
they can
place.
write that down so
So
they can do
no,
it.
yeah,
No, you're doing
absolutely.
great. No, this is no fantastic. And you painted it in with like concepts so that people understand like what you're talking about, but I also want to just like define it so they can write that down, take it to the team and be acting on
And
that.
one call to action I
Um,
want to throw in here to leadership, because this is key. And I've made this mistake, and will probably continue to make this mistake because my brain runs just so fast that I have to slow down and really be very intentional with how I explain and introduce really innovative stuff. And is, as leaders, if you have direct reports that you're looking to roll out these new tools, you have to take it back. You may know it. You may be at a certain level of familiarity with this stuff. This is game changing stuff that has been, 50 years ago, they were talking about in sci-fi novels, right? It's not going to be learned by everybody. Everybody is wired differently. And you have to really think, how can I best introduce, explain, and paint an illustrative picture of the value of this new tool and walk slowly with explaining it to my team, because this OPI won't be an effective measurement if we are, as leaders, not effective in explaining how we intend for it to be worked into our work life and where we intend this thing to go. So we have to be really, really intentional and well thought out with our introductions of this if we really truly want to measure the right ROI on this tool.
And the word that comes to mind to me is that multiplier word, explaining it to people as this is a multiplier and natural language. Like I guess those are the two keywords for me is like multiplying and also natural language. Like this is not some new technical skill that you're teaching people. It is natural language. It's getting back to the basics. It's getting back to natural language. I love that line you said a few minutes ago, like with Google, we have become wired to write like SEO bots because that is the frame of reference that we were in. And now AI, it's actually like stepping back from that like mold of SEO to natural language. How do we think about things? How do we explain things? I love psychology and thinking about the way people think, and getting back to this like natural language way of thinking is pushing us all to be more creative, be more communicative, be more like explorative with our thoughts and with our words. So I actually love this transition back to like vivid thinking and vivid communicating because that's how AI thrives.
Yeah.
Um, Let's get into a couple of workflows. I love that we've like set all of this context and you've already like shared these formulas. There are a few specific things that you are doing and have done, and you're gracious enough to like share some of these workflows that you've built. Let's start with the job ad grader because I think that's an easy one that anyone listening to this can basically like run with and go and implement in their own organization. So let's start with that workflow of like what is the job ad grader? What does it do? How did you build it? And how can people replicate this?
Sure. So within, and I'll use OpenAI's ChatGPT as our environment here, right? But Copilot, a lot of your LLMs are going to have a tool now. You can build your own agents. You can build your own, whether it's agent, applications. The title will vary by platform, but you're building your own app essentially within their environment. And so this job ad grader is one of those internal, GPTs is what they officially call it on the OpenAI platform. It's a GPT that my internal team uses to help solve for the pain point of, we had a lot of requests for, hey, can you look at our job ad? Hey, we took your template. We have a base template, right? We're not doing one-offs all the time, but we have a base template. Everybody refines, but how do we get it a little bit better? Job ads are both science and art. There's a science to writing it. There's an art to finessing it. Well, that can take time. How do I, my goal was, how do I shorten this? And so going into the GPT creating tool, essentially played with it and was like, all right, I need to gamify this. Nobody likes getting critiqued and have it come across harsh. So I got to run in the opposite direction as best as possible. How do I do that? I need to gamify it. Let me assign a grade. Grade is easy to understand. We are all universally kind of conditioned to understand what an A minus means versus a D minus, right? So I was like, all right, checkbox. I have a a method of explaining improvement or an increase or decrease in performance of the ad based off that conditioning. And I need to make it to ultimately save time. A lot of the themes here is the agents I built, the tools that my team has at their fingertips is it's to save time and to create more relationships and more conversations. This job aggregator is going to save us. It saved days. I haven't done an exact calculation with it like I did with the Copilot, but we essentially take a hyperlink to our publicly posted ad, and we will then paste it into this GPT. It will grade it. It will give it an A minus, a B plus, a B, whatever it may be. It will highlight what you did great. I'm a big proponent of we need to reinforce, lock up, freeze, do not touch what you did great, because don't fiddle with that. Fiddle with what comes next. Here's where you can improve. And that's what the grader does. It locks up what you did great. Don't touch it. Don't mess with it. It's good. Leave it be. And then here below it, this is where we want you to focus. And this is, if you make these changes, it'll actually, the prompts tell you, make these changes, you should be able to go from B minus to B plus, right? There is no, and I'll message it, there is no A plus. I built it so there's no A plus. A plus would imply perfection. There is no perfection. We don't have the black book on Indeed's algorithm, so that'll never occur. So the best we can do is an A minus, and that's what we just condition our owners to understand is A minus is where we want to be at. If we can get you an A minus, we've solved pretty much as we possibly can. And this has helped them fundamentally maximize their organic job ads, and it's helped them on a cost savings. They spent less on sponsoring their job ads to mask, essentially Band-Aid, what they didn't understand, know, or have the awareness of what makes a good ad. And so we've been able to not only increase time savings, but to also decrease expenditure on our franchise owner sides with sponsored ads because their organics perform better than they ever have.
Incredible. To get slightly more prescriptive, you shared with me a couple of prompts that people can literally like copy and paste into their own chat GPT. Can you read out 2 of the prompts that you shared with me?
Yeah. Let me find my notes here. So I wrote
Or I've got
some.
them too. Yeah, great. I could share one of them is grade this caregiver job ad for clarity, motivation, and fairness. Give me a letter grade and 5 prioritize edits that move the needle in home care. Like that is the level of clarity that we're giving the prompt. So the other one that you shared
I
was
have it. Yep.
rewrite with strong A minus. Yeah, read that one out.
So this is kind of good talking to the prompt engineering side of things, and this is just where it's an ever evolving path. So nobody ever, I think, arrives at a perfect prompt to come up with, but is you know what you want, but you have to articulate that. And that's where, like, if you're an operator, wherever you're working, if you have somebody with a history degree, somebody with an English degree, somebody that knows how to write, I can guarantee you they're probably going to be your go-to default prompt engineer in your office. You don't have to go hire them. They're just naturally going to be able to articulate thought better than anybody else because of that degree that they have. And it comes down to this: rewrite to a strong A minus using plain English, clear pay, 5 tight bullets, and a 35-word intro that speaks to purpose and flexibility. So we all want that. We all think that. But
Yeah.
how many of us can clearly articulate that? I just spoke to it. That's a prompt that's prompt engineering at its simplest terms. And so it's just that reconditioning your brain to say what's already in your head, but to do so clearly and concisely. That constitutes a clear, high quality prompt.
I could not agree more. And that's why I wanted to have you read that prompt because it is like perfect. Like that is like a perfect prompt because like you said, this is what we want. This is what we know we want, but it's another thing to write a prompt that gives us what we want. And I love what you're saying too. Like shout out to all like the history majors and the English majors. Some people may think like, oh, they're all going away because of AI, but they're actually the ones like kind of like thriving with AI because they are good at natural language. They're good at articulating and communicating their thoughts clearly, and that's where AI thrives. Um, I love this so much. Let's go on to the second workflow, actually, which is leaning into your Copilot with Microsoft. And I know that's a little bit specific, but I think people can understand like what that Copilot does. You have built what you call Gene, which I love, which is after the founders of Griswold. You have named and built this Copilot for internal operations with your team specifically. And I think this is another really powerful example. So explain Gene and the Copilot and how you and your team are using this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big believer in simplifying, keeping everything. Why have a million different software platforms, right? And so Copilot's been our most recent kind of strategy shift where we're just trying to merge everything into a Microsoft Office suite, and I'm really happy with it. I know some people have their feelings about it, but I honestly can't say enough good things about the tech stack that we have built. And with Copilot, because now we're bringing that generative AI functionality within that Microsoft space that we have built here, we can securely connect it amongst all our SharePoint, our OneDrive, all the areas that we have the secret sauce to what we do here, right? We have our forms, best practices, processes. Everybody does. It all exists in some way, shape, or form in each of our work environments, right? But it has the ability now to be layered across all those. And what we one of the other pain points I keep finding, and we're fast growing. We have 40 plus new franchise owners under 2 years in business with us, right? We need to rapidly deploy and articulate very clearly, what's best practices, what's the best resources for an owner that is just learning and being immersed in this world. The faster that my franchise business coaches and I can provide that information, the more effective we can be in supporting them, but also we can reach more of them in the same amount of time. That was the premise for I need to create a companion tool, an asset that can help me reduce time to essentially tool acquisition or document acquisition. Because we know it's there, but and I'm sure everybody can resonate with this thought is how many times have you messaged somebody in your office on Slack or on Teams of, hey, where's this form? Hey, do you have the link to this file? Now, compound that, add it up. How many times over the course of a year do you do that? Those seconds and minutes add up to hours, lost productivity, and we just got to be 1% better than everybody else. And so if we can be 1% better here and I can talk to more people than you, I win. And so we put together this agent and we named it Gene because I just love the stories were too good together. Jean's mission when she first started Griswold was to help as many people as possible. Well, in 2025, we have an AI tool that is layered across our entire ecosphere, and its ability to help us help more people is profound. I can talk to more owners. I can talk to more of their teams. I can provide more insights and more resources more accurately. And so why not call it Gene? And I thought that it's just a great way to kind of keep her legacy vision and the culture that we have here at Griswold alive and well in technology days.
I love that so, so much. And my mind goes to this place of like, there's a lot of AI tools coming on the scene, and we're almost getting to the point where they're like siloed and fragmented and it's getting like convoluted. We've gotten to this place really quickly. And I actually think part of the next couple of years is we're going to see more of this where there's almost too many like point solutions and AI solutions that we're trying to piecemeal together. But the concept here with this Copilot is you all have like Microsoft as your base. All of your tools, resources, protocols, regulations, all of that is housed in one environment. And the Copilot is the layer on top of that that can consume, scrub, analyze all of that information. And I think the application for anyone listening to this, like it may or may not be Microsoft and Copilot, but it's get all of your resources, all of your internal documentation in one place, layer an AI on top of that, and like you were just speaking to, the unlocks of time and ability and capabilities of your team is multiplied profoundly because just the speed at which you can access information is
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah. And if there anything from the intangibles that are hard to measure too is your team's happier is what I'm finding is that the more that we haven't reached our full stride with these tools, but it reduces stress, right? Anxiety, anxiousness. You want to help and you want to do right by the franchise owner or their teams. But you have this pressure with time that, if I can help you breathe better and breathe easier and sleep better because you have time to do these things, that's something that sometimes it's hard to measure that, but it's tangible.
I'm really glad you added that because, yeah, job satisfaction with AI. Again, I think there's a lot of like fear and hesitations and uncertainties, but I'm really glad you just painted that in of like, no, job satisfaction is going up, productivity is going up, maybe time off is going up. It's like all of these more like qualitative results from this very like tangible technology that we're using. Can you share? I know you've got it in your notes as well, just a couple of prompts that you've used inside of Gene again to kind of like illustrate what you guys are doing with this tool. Can you share a couple of those?
Sure. So I'll give you an example because I mentioned earlier, Copilot is we use it to help transcribe all our calls, and the note taking has just been so profound in helping us just do a better job of what we do and working with our franchise owners. And so we have just in 1 hour's time, 30 minutes time, you can talk about a lot, especially me. I talk fast. I can brain dump a lot. My owners roll their eyes. If anybody's listening, they know what I'm talking about. Is okay, what the heck did Matt just cover in 30 minutes, right? Well, prompt being like, all right, summarize this meeting for franchise owner, whoever it is, right? In 150 words with 3 decisions, 3 action items, owner of that action item plus due date, and a bulleted risk section. What happens if we don't do this? Which is something that I learned, you know, really it's a quiet killer. What if we don't take action? What's the implications? Those can be oftentimes, those are almost always worse than trying and failing at something because at least it mitigates it, right? And so we've always kind of leaned into how do we help everybody understand we got to get this done. And it's not because we just want to tell you to do something, or it's not because we're assigning this to make more work. If we don't do this, it doesn't align. We won't complete our mission of helping as many people as we can. We won't reach our annual goal. And that can really help, especially with like a scheduling coordinator or a recruiter, somebody that's heads down on a weekly cadence. This helps them understand how much and how important they are to the bigger picture, at 10,000 feet where you as a leader are operating on a daily basis.
I just love how, like, tangible this is, and when you define, like, those prompts, it's like, "Oh, wow." People listening to this, it's like, "Take this and go apply it in your own organization." Like, this is like a blueprint, like a framework from, like, Matt's brain and Matt's experience, but translate that, take that, let your team listen to this, and let their mind just run on, like, the applications for them personally. I wanna share one more workflow that you've shared with me, which came out of a call with you and a franchisee. You guys were just, like, riffing and having one of your meetings, just, like, talking through ideas and concepts, and you came on this companionship exemption coach. And again, could you just tell the story of, like, the meeting that you had, the talking points of what you guys were working through, and then you were like, "Wait, I know this tool that can do this thing, like, let's just, like, build this thing together." Can you just, like, kind of tell the story of how you landed on this
Yeah.
really
So
incredible concept?
yeah, I was actually on the phone. It wasn't with a franchise owner, but it was with just a consultant because we were just, like everybody right now, on July 2nd, the FAB came out on the workforce exemption, which materially changes, our operating environment, since 2013 when it really went into effect. And, you know, there's a lot to unpack there, not only just in materially what the direct implications are, but then also the ripple effects as far as how do you operationalize this? How does this impact caregiver wages? How does this impact your margin? How does this impact scheduling, marketing? It touches quite literally every piece of the business. I'm like, I'm having a tough time wrapping my head around this, and I live in this world. Like, this is my job to understand this, and if I'm struggling with it, God only knows, a scheduler, a marketer, a franchise owner, my team themselves, there's too much on your plate to try to decipher this. So I'm like, there's a better way. And I've been playing with the coding in GPT-5 with the rollout of it, and I was really liked what I saw. So I'm like, you know what? All right, I'm on a call, 30-minute call. Like as my brain starts taking off, all right, I need to understand what is this consultant talking about better? So first I'm like, okay, GPT-5, hey, and I was sloppy. It wasn't a well-engineered prompt. I was like, hey, give me a clear breakdown of the July 2nd FAB. Help me understand this thing. Quite literally, that was a prompt. Like, I'm not saying that's best practice. It was just, I need to fire off something real quick so that I could keep pace with what the consultant was sharing on the call. And it gave me something. It gave me something better than I thought I was there. I'm like, okay, great. Understand this. Okay. Now, and this is where I'm fiddling. I'm quite literally fidgeting. I had no idea that this was going to work or not, but just where's this thing go? I had it put together some code for me that I could paste into a platform I like to use called Replit. It's a software development site that uses natural language processing to essentially code, right? You can also paste code in there, but too technical. I'm not going to get into that technical rabbit hole. But essentially, it gave me the code and it provided essentially the framework for an app, and which was the best way I can summarize it is in 30 minutes, I took a one-page FAQ, GPT scaffolded an app module, and before the meeting ended, I had a fully functioning, cloud-based dashboard app that I could deploy to educate myself, my caregivers, anybody that needed to see this thing, really, franchise owners, executive team, at the state level, what the risk factors were, what you needed to be aware of. And I'll share my screen. And this tool is, it's been extremely helpful with just creating situational awareness on something that's real time that's going to impact us quite potentially, right? We're seeing indicators that this thing most likely will go through, and we need to be prepared. And so this is the tool that I put together where you could change everything from the franchise location. You change the operating state, we're going to get interactions. It's going to give you different risk factors, different levels, thresholds. And so I'm gamifying, I'm creating a very, friendly UI user interface to help with as far as understanding compliance guardrails. If this happens, what does scheduling look like? It has a scheduling simulator in there to help us essentially learn faster what's an optimal schedule on the other side of this reality if it occurs, right? What does pay look like? What does payer source interactions look like? What does referral marketing look like? And to derive this from on a sloppily engineered prompt, I got a really great breakdown and converted it to code. This all was built in 30 minutes from an initial, hey, just tell me about the FAB, to I have a viable asset that I can deploy to my executive team, to I can deploy to anybody that we interact with, to help them very quickly understand implications and how to approach this new version of the industry if this thing goes through. And it's just all about better positioning. How can we help our owners succeed? And there's many more versions of tools like this that we've put together, to help our teams just, understand what's happening in an ever increasing speed by which this industry operates.
When you first sent me this, my mind was blown. I was like, wait, Matt, you came up with this, built this in a matter of minutes. Just to toot both of our horns for a second, like, this is why you can't get this information elsewhere. This is why this podcast and people like Matt are just like changing the industry, because we're sharing this level of information publicly. And you, Matt, are sharing this so graciously. Like, quick plug for all of you listening to this, Matt's sharing his screen right now, and on YouTube, you can actually see what he's showing in real time. It's actually live, a tool built that he's using with his network. And back to the beauty of natural language, you had this call with this consultant, kind of had like these abstract concepts in your brain, put it in ChatGPT, it gave you better prompt. You put this into the tool called Replit, it builds this for you. Like, this is not 5-10 years from now, pie in the sky, we get something. Like, this is today. You have built this tool, you are using it proactively and preparing for the FAB rollout. Like, it's nuts. It's just mind blowing. And I just want to thank you for sharing this first and foremost, but also hope that everyone listening to this can just like start to conceptualize the reality that we're in with AI right now. It's insane, and it's here, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm preaching to the choir, right? You are all over this.
Yeah, but it's getting the word out on it. And it's not, it's, again, I have a history degree. So like, I quite literally, I am the antithesis to who should be on paper qualified to do this. And I'm finding ways to win with it and support our network and our owners. And I use it as a call to action. I was like, quite literally, if I can do it, and I didn't have a great GPA either, but I survived college and high school. And if I can do it and I can figure this out, then quite literally, it's just put some time aside in the evenings and just fiddle with it, tinker with it. It's going to present ideas that you never thought of. That's the glory of it. That's the value of it, to where you're like, it's going to get your creative juices flowing, and you're going to find ways to get excited, to help just find ways to support your teams to success. And it's only going to make everybody better. And my thought, it's just all mindset, and are we open to change and learning a new thing?
That makes two of us BC students, but here we are today, just like rocking it in home care and changing the game with AI. You've shared so much good information today, Matt, and I hope people are just, I love these conversations that just get people to think differently, like step outside of their current thinking and let their mind run on what's possible with AI. Just a couple of closing questions. One is, where do you think we're gonna get to? Like, let your mind go to like 2030, like 5 years from now. Like, look how far we've come in 3 years. Where do you get excited about our us being in maybe 5 years from
This
now?
is an extremely dangerous question because I could talk all day every day on this one. But where I really see it, and I think specific to to the industry we're in with home care and so forth, is right now we're in a stage of initial understanding, but more so on the operational based side of things. We're just emerging with getting involved with the generative AI for for visuals, or it's still on its way there, but it's not perfect. Also operationally, it's having its biggest impact there. It will have a very big impact in the near future because again, talk about compounding. It's only the speed. It's not going to be. We're not heading into the future at a constant rate of speed. We are heading to the future at an ever increasing speed. So if we're running at 60 miles an hour today, we're running at 120 miles an hour next year. And in 2 years' time, I think we're going to see is we're going to see the operational workflows, best practices with the adoption of AI be an afterthought. If you're not doing it, you're behind the eight ball 2 years' time. What we're going to see then is really the effective use of that technology, best practices, being assimilated into now the healthcare setting. How are we taking PHI information securely? How are we taking, the clinical world and the diagnosis codes, the ICD-10s, taking all of the clinical care notes, and how are we, in a more broad stroke, does that world intersect with non-medical home care? How does the AI bring together worlds that have historically been very far apart as far as collaboration, only recently came together? How do it's the clinical element information that's now available that's in their world and they're using it, but it's making that jump to where the continuum, much like kind of how the guide program through Medicare is functioning, where we're trying to bring together a lot of different stakeholders. AI, I see that bringing together worlds that have historically been siloed to better focus on care outcomes and to get there faster in real time. I'm really excited about is the hardware application. We're talking software on this conversation. Really, there's a whole hardware element of this as well too. And it's not a robot to replace a caregiver, but it's how do the hardwares blend in with medication reminders, medication disbursements, remote monitoring systems? How do all of these assets kind of come together into that environment around on that patient-focused environment? That's where AI is really, I think, going to find its pace. It's bringing people together. So as much as we're used to the Terminator movies, where there's this other side there where this has a very real impact to get people off their phones, to not be siloed in their own little universes. It's going to pull together a clinician, a caregiver, a counselor, behavioral health, and we're all going to be able to talk so much more effectively with each other and better understand each other. I think we're going to have better outcomes just from knowing exactly what you're thinking, and even if you're 1,000 miles away.
We love this stuff when that just like gave me chills. It's like, it's so cool to think about where we're going to be. And I love your take on this, like the medical field and the home care field, like coming together in a way that we've never been able to before. We've been working so hard on that relationship and on rewriting that narrative and the continuum. But it's like, wow, AI has the ability to bring us together in a way that we've just never known was possible. And that is really exciting.
And one thing I got to add to it, because I forgot to mention it earlier, but it's helped greatly on our side too with that, right, is speaking up, right? So in the home care space, where we're used to personal and companion care, lingo, conversation, right? But there's a whole world coming from the home health side, pediatric home health. There's a whole different language, terminology, right? And the AI tools, they can help you speak that language faster. You don't have to be a clinician to speak like a clinician now, right? You can find out that you can prompt the AI to, hey, I really want to impress this director of nursing at this post-acute rehab facility, and asking it, tell me what I need to know. What do I need to say from my position? And it's going to help me speak that DON's language. First meeting, first impression, create a higher impact. It's going to help me do my job better and reach my end goal and break down historical biases or pre-existing conditions that were there. And it's going to help as far as tone, how we interact and communicate with each other. It's going to help us, I think, just be better offline as much as it's helped us being better online.
Well said. Gets me so excited, and being a part of it is just like a pleasure. Like, we are going to be a part of shaping that future, which is incredible. Last thing, Matt, because you thought about this and I want to include it as well. We've got hundreds of owners listening to this right now. And what's one AI experiment that you would challenge all of them to do this week in their business? Like, get specific, get tactical. What's one thing that they should go out and do this week?
Absolutely. So I had to think about this one because there's a lot of different ways we could go with putting a prompt in. But let's start with what can you affect today? What's been, and most importantly, what's been bothering your business, bothering you? Is it a hurdle, roadblock? Is it a choke point? What is the issue that's holding you back from the outcome that you desire the most? Tell that to the agent. Tell that to the ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Copilot, whichever one that you have the easiest access to, and explain your position. Follow the prompt guide that I shared earlier. Break it down as best you can there. It doesn't have to be perfect because logic will pick it up, and ask it, hey, this is my choke point. This is what's holding me back. I need to get to, say, 1,000 billable hours by end of the quarter, right? Here's the prompt, provide me a 30, 60, 90-day strategy plan to help me overcome, insert primary choke point or primary hurdle, insert, and then by this date, insert the date that you want to achieve your objective by. And it will most likely provide you a high level one if that's all you provide. The more information that you provide from a context standpoint, from a reasoning standpoint, from a task standpoint, and you just beef this thing up, that basic prompt can yield for you a very actionable plan that you can implement tomorrow, today, Monday, and that will, oftentimes we struggle in the weekly cadence that we exist in within this industry. Most of us are on weekly billing cycles, is breaking out of that hamster wheel effect. Every week, it's the same thing every Monday and Tuesday, billing and payroll. After that, it's moving on to how are we looking going into the weekend, midday, midweek orientations. We are creatures of habit in this industry. And that's why it makes it so hard for us to force multiply our pursuit of our overall goals. This can do that for you.
Amazing. That's why I wanted to include that, because the reasoning is so powerful. You could have put together a prompt for billing, for recruiting, for payroll. Like, you spend so much time in this, and I wanted to push you to answer this question because you work with hundreds of owners. This is the most important thing, is getting out of that hamster wheel, stepping back and thinking about strategy and breaking down barriers. Like, that's what leaders are struggling with. And this is a AI prompt to help you break down that wall in your own business. Matt, you're phenomenal. I think the world of you. You delivered. I pushed you to come up with some of this and to map some of this out, but I've been so impressed with how you've articulated all these concepts and ideas. I have a feeling people are going to want to reach out to you. Obviously, you're busy and your time is precious, but what would be the best way for people to communicate with you in a way that's conducive to
Sure.
your
So
schedule?
work email, matt@griswoldcare.com. And I'm very active on LinkedIn. So just search Matt Ericksen. Again, Vice President of Sales and Operations here at Griswold, and based out of Bluebell. And, if whether you're local, you want to connect, I always love just, learning from everybody and connecting with as many people as possible. So excited to be here. Thank you for this opportunity. It's been an absolute guilty pleasure just to talk about the things that I love working on, and I appreciate the ability to share everything that I love doing here.
The feeling is mutual. Thanks a bunch for joining me in the lab, Matt. Until next time.